I think dating that's for marriage and dating with intentionality is really what will lead you to peace.
If you go on a date and you end with anxiety instead of hope, right, it shows you that there's something wrong with the culture and we need to date differently.
A lot of men are very hesitant because they fear rejection.
Of course. I'll be clear about my opinion coming into this.
Yes.
So my experience of online dating has been fairly negative.
62% of people meet online. That number is only increasing.
The Lord can use anything, whether you met online or in person, whatever. It doesn't change the value of the relationship that you have together, right?
Hi, guys.
Hey, everyone. Welcome to Intentional Dating. My name is Nick. I'm a husband, I'm a father, and I work in marriage prep ministry.
Hi, you guys. My name is Alessandra Conti. You're gonna call me Allie for this podcast. And we are so excited to be here. I am a professional matchmaker for over 13 years. I work in Beverly Hills, but I'm so excited to really deep dive into intentional dating because you guys, right now, it is the wild, wild west. It really is.
So today we're really interested in investigating the topic of dating differently. What does this mean? Why do we need to talk about this? How has the culture changed over the last few years? What even is dating culture right now?
And today we have two incredible guests. I've been following Emily for quite some time now. She is just such an icon, I feel like, in especially the Christian influencer world, and her amazing husband. But welcome, you guys. We're so excited to have you.
Emily, you are a mother, a YouTuber, a Catholic influencer, an author. And Daniel, you're a husband and father and an entrepreneur, and you all are the founders of SacredSpark.
That is correct. Dating differently, dating intentionally, which we'll be talking about on this episode, is something that's really near and dear to our hearts. Yeah. So we're so excited to be with you, to share our story, to share what we've learned.
Yes, and please tell us, how did you guys meet? I feel like that's the first question.
Best place to begin, of course.
Yeah. We met actually 6,000 miles from here over in Europe. So I'm actually from the Netherlands. So ik kan ook Nederlands tegen je praten, dan versta je er niks van. So I can talk Dutch, but you probably won't understand at all. So I met Emily when she was over for an event out in Europe, and I picked her up at the airport. I was also part of that same event, and we spent 4 days with each other. That was the first time that Emily was ever outside of the US. And after 4 days of spending time with her, I knew I wanted to pursue her, very intentionally. I didn't know what that would look like, living 6,000 miles apart. She would fly back to Los Angeles. I was staying over in Europe, and that's really where our story started. And here we are now, 10 years of marriage. We just celebrated. So
wow,
yeah.
Congratulations. That is a productive trip. Wow.
Right? Oh my gosh.
I had never been outside the United States. It was my first trip. I got my passport just for that trip. And I was there for 4 days. So it was an amazing, truly productive trip, something that I never could have seen coming. Neither of us could have ever seen coming.
There.
Oh my goodness.
So where did things go from there? You met on this 4-day trip overseas. How did you guys stay in contact, and how did things progress from there?
Yeah, so Emily had just started her full-time ministry, traveling and so forth. And so I was still in school. I had just accepted to go into grad school, so I knew I was going to be in school for the next 2 years. But again, there was this weird thing, right, where you meet for 4 days, you meet somebody, who lives across the world, but you feel this tug in your heart, really this call from God of like, I really, really like this girl. I really want to pursue her, but I didn't know what that would look like, especially with that distance, obviously. But I just wrote her a message because I was also the one that picked her up from the airport, and I was also the one that dropped her off at the airport again 4 days later. We said our goodbyes, and we prayed, and those whole 4 days were amazing. But then really send her a message to say, hey, I don't know what this will look like. I don't know what, God is doing here, but I feel like a strong call to pursue, and I want to pursue you if you're open to letting me pursue you. Oh. So I wrote her that message, and she said that she landed in Atlanta on a layover back to LA. She read that message, and she was open to that. And so we both had to figure out what that would look like. And so for the next, about 2 months, we would do intentional, back then it was like Skype calls that we would set up, and we would have these
Rest
dates.
in peace, Skype.
Yeah, we would have these dates that we would, set up to just get to know each other, and really build on those 4 days. And then I asked her to come back that same summer, so 2 months later, to the Netherlands, just so we could get to know each other more and spend that time together as well. And so 2 months later, she flew back from LA back to Holland again. Her family and her parents, they were all a bit surprised. I think, again, a young lady traveling to Europe for the first time meets a guy now wants to, fly back and so forth.
It's the dream. It's the dream.
It's a little bit Hallmarky.
It is,
but
no,
when it
it's
happens
totally
in real life,
Hallmarky.
it's amazing. That's crazy.
We definitely dated differently.
Oh, yes.
Yes. Emily, was that not the most attractive thing? That he just put it out there. He was like, listen, I want to get to know you. I think you're amazing. I would love to basically try to date you intentionally. How did that make you feel?
Absolutely. It made me feel seen as a person. It was really surprising. I had positive experiences in dating and negative experiences in dating. It was kind of a mixture of both. But his intentionality from so far away is something that I hope all men can take inspiration from. Is he's felt the call to do something as a man. And surely I could have said, not for me, sorry, for a bevy of reasons. But I was open and receptive, and it could go either way. But I think as a man, what Daniel did was something that all men should step up to do. It is very attractive. It sets you apart in this day and age. And it really kicked our relationship off with clarity, which is something that's really hard to find in our dating culture today.
It's so true. It's so true. That clarity aspect of things. And I think a lot of men are very hesitant to put their intentions out there because they fear rejection.
Of course.
But I think that's something that's so beautiful is that if a man puts himself out there, and like with you, Daniel, if you would have put yourself out there and said, okay, listen, I think you're amazing. I want to pursue you intentionally. If Emily's reply was, hey, I think you're great. I just, I'm not feeling that romantic connection or whatever. Beautiful. That would then redirect you to be in a space where you could meet your future wife. But I think in the modern culture right now, everybody's so scared of that potential of rejection that they just don't say anything. They don't want to ruin the friendship. They don't want to make their intentions clear. So any rejection is God's protection, and it provides redirection. I want to now talk about the matchmaking posts of it all, because as a matchmaker, I remember getting tagged. This was a couple years ago, and I want to say 7 different people sent me your posts, Emily, and they're like, "Do you know Emily? Do you know Emily was?" And I was like, "I don't know her. I don't know her." And then it was like, "This is a matchmaking post," and I was like, "Yes, honey, one of my own, my brethren." Walk us through, what am I talking about for the people listening that have no idea what this is?
First, Allie, if I could ask you, I want you to share with the listeners what got you into matchmaking first, because I feel like I'm a matchmaker, for the last couple of years, but you really have been in this a long time. So as we talk about matchmaking, I would love for you to say what got you into matchmaking in the first place, and then I could talk about the matchmaking post as we dive into this topic.
Well, I myself and my sister, we have always been matchmakers since before it was socially acceptable to be matchmakers. We were in the sandbox setting up little Johnny with little Jessica. We were like, oh my gosh,
it was destined to be. Oh yes.
But anyway, that was a very long time ago. But 13 years ago, myself and my sister, we were like, I had just graduated from college. She did her master's in Oxford. We moved to LA, and we said, we're starting a matchmaking company. And that's exactly what we did. And it just has snowballed so organically. And we now have a team of matchmakers, and we've matched thousands of couples, But tell us about you.
You want to connect singles, and I had the same heart. Over many, many years of ministry, I just really had a heart for singles who I know you work with, and Nick, you probably know many of them, who say, I cannot find anybody. I cannot find the right match. I'm hoping they'll come along, et cetera, and so on and so forth. And so I've always tried to use social media for the glory of God, for whatever the Lord wanted to use it for to build up the church, which sounds silly, but the Lord can use anything for any purpose whatsoever because he is omnipotent. So I thought, what if I did a matchmaking post on Instagram and I wrote, this is a matchmaking post. If you'd like to comment about yourself, feel free to say who you are, where you live, what you're looking for. Go crazy. Have at it. I'm just using this space for all of you singles just to see what happens. And what happened was an absolute explosion, right?
Yeah.
I told him, I said, I have no idea what I just did. I don't think anybody's going to comment on it. And I think everybody's going to think it's the dumbest thing they've ever seen. But I just did it. And he's like, okay. So in 48 hours, there were over 6,900 comments. I have received a text from like every friend in the book. They said, I've heard about this thing. What are you doing? And I said, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just trying to be obedient to the Lord. And I saw how much there is a need for people with hearts for matchmaking, for people who want to help singles date intentionally and differently, that there are ways that we can help singles and support them and see them and meet them where they are. And so over the past couple of years, there have been over 20 marriages now. About half of those marriages are people setting two people up. A girl was saying, my brother Will, he lives in Wisconsin, he's 32, he runs a honeybee farm. If I can find a girl for him, I'd be so happy. And there are probably about half of the marriages that have happened because of that. Someone posting about their best friend or their sister or their brother. And then half the marriages, they found each other just organically. And this is all over the world. There's a couple that's married in New Zealand. There was a couple that met from the Canary Islands to New Jersey. There's one from Ireland and Canada. So this is people who looked at our story. They know our story and they thought, maybe dating outside of my city isn't such a bad idea.
Sure.
Maybe with God, all things are actually possible. And that if I meet someone in any way, shape, or form, a situation might not be ideal if I live in Ireland and you live in Canada, or if I live in California and you live in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
But what is God doing here? And what is he calling us to be courageous and maybe date differently by smashing whatever type I thought I was looking for, location I thought I was looking for, and go for it.
It's so funny also because it's like, I mean, we struggle with people who won't date somebody who lives in the valley and they live on the west side.
Can't go across the hills, yeah.
Proud Valley girl here. I'm a Valley girl through and through.
No, exactly. But like how wild and ridiculous. Right. You're talking, Canada and New Zealand. Like, if you know what I mean? Like, wow. Wow.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Wow.
So I'm wondering if we could...
Sometimes you have to travel for love.
Yes.
That's all I'm going to say. Sometimes you have to travel for love.
Yeah, Emily, I'm wondering if we could talk about, just briefly, if you could share all those comments. Like what were common challenges that people were coming up against? Why were they struggling to date over the last couple of years? What has changed in the culture that they're identifying, like, I can't find a date, I'm not able to date, it's just not working out? Like, what are people struggling with?
Yeah, I think that there's so much... there's no more clarity in dating, right? It's confusion, it's exhausting, and really hope has been lost for a lot of people, right? Like if you go on a date and you end with anxiety instead of hope, right? It shows you that there's something wrong with the culture and we need to date differently. You know what I mean? And that is also in terms of where do people go now to try to connect with others, right? And so in the digital age that we find ourselves in now, people are obviously going more and more online, but even with online, there's a plethora of options there. But where is faith is like a core component, where can you still find people that are actually living the faith and wanting that to be a core part of the relationship and so forth? And so with the matchmaking post that Emily did, she really tried to cultivate a space of the people that followed her online, which a lot of them have similar, religious beliefs and faith and all those components, and have that be the starting ground of like, hey, I, love Emily's stuff online. I follow the stuff that she does. And so I'm sure that there's some common ground that we have.
I feel as though when people commented on your post, they felt comfortable because they were like, oh, it's Emily. And people have kind of a parasocial relationship with you. Like I certainly do. And then I met you and I was like, oh my gosh, she's so lovely. Like, she's just as lovely in person as she is, on social media. But that's really how people feel. And they're like, oh, well, okay, Emily is our kind of intermediary. Emily's our matchmaker. So can we talk a little bit about how did you then say, okay, something needs to be done with all of these single people. this is now the route that we want to go. I would love to just hear that process for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I've heard that Nick maybe isn't such a fan of dating apps, so we can hear from you in a second about your opinion on dating
You have
apps.
heard correctly. Yeah.
But what we were finding, so many people said, can you categorize this by age? Can you categorize this by country? Can you categorize this by this, and this? Daniel can speak to his background in tech, but I thought, we thought together, what if we made something official? Because obviously, right, there's a lot of dating apps, but based on the research that we've done, which Daniel can also share about, people weren't really satisfied with what dating apps were, like the ways that dating apps were helping them connect.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really like, for us, the intentionality behind it was the core component, but also thinking in terms of like, what is God calling us to? The Instagram posts and the matchmaking posts were great and beautiful for what they did, but there was also a lot lacking with there. Because there were thousands and thousands of people that commented on these posts, you can only go through a subsection of the comments, add somebody that looks at the post, and then it resets itself. You obviously can't filter on it. Exactly. So it got very messy very quickly as well, just with the sheer number of people that would comment on these posts. And again, because Emily would do, additional ones every 2 months or a couple months after, and there would just be thousands and thousands of people. And so we thought, okay, what if we provided a space where we can have them come together and have really the starting foundation be like a Catholic, someone who's looking for an intentional relationships that will hopefully eventually lead to, a sacramental marriage. And so
Craziest thing we've ever done.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's amazing.
By far.
You guys are fearless.
Yeah.
But back to kind of what Emily was saying. Nick, would you mind sharing? No.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah?
Sure.
It's okay. I think you can come clean.
I'll be clear about my opinion coming into this.
Yes.
So, not to come out swinging.
Come clean.
But in my experience, I come from a really big family. I'm one of 12 kids. My dad is one of 7. My mom is one of 15. I have over 100 first cousins. I did my undergrad at Franciscan University. And so that, like, if you go to Franciscan, anyone who has been will know, like, that is the perfect place for people to meet their spouse. Because it's just like 3,000 people your age who are like, share your values, open to dating. It's a wonderful place. Highly recommend all the young folks out there going to Franciscan. But so my background and my life experience has told me that, reality is in the physical world. Like, this is where you can really connect with people. This is where you can actually form lasting relationships. And in my experience of dating and now my experience of marriage and finding my wife and all of that, I was all in person. It was all set up through friends and, having things be organic. And so my experience of online dating has been fairly negative, to be perfectly blunt, fairly negative. And usually when people my age or younger come to me asking for relationship advice, how do I do this? I almost always direct them to like the in-person traditional routes.
Yeah, and I feel like also with it makes sense that there's a lot of this negative energy around dating apps. But I know that what you guys have ventured to do and are doing is a very different way.
I think, first to go back to what Nick was saying, like in these dating apps as well. So for us, we're exactly where you are, like in-person relationship, right? Like for us, SacredSpark is all about online connections for offline relationships, right? So it's a dating app, but you don't actually date on an app, right? Like the SacredSpark is there to facilitate a connection, right? Just like you would facilitate a connection between your friends, that's what we're there to do. You don't actually date on an app, obviously, right? And so we are there to facilitate a connection between the singles so that they themselves can date in real life. And that's what we're all about, because we're not about dating or finding somebody. It's not the end goal. It's really the start. The end goal is getting to a marriage. That's what our end goal is. So SacredSpark is just there to facilitate a connection. And so I think people nowadays, if you look at a lot of secular dating apps, right, the goal of these apps is to keep you on these apps. That's how the app makes money. That's how it works, right? And that's why people date, quote unquote, on these apps. But in real life, the app was just there to facilitate the connection. So if you talk to somebody that would say, that's married for however many years, long, short, whatever it might be, I don't think anybody would say, oh, I regret meeting a person at a bar, or I regret meeting them, at my grandma introduced them, or I regret meeting them online. I think the end goal is like that's just where the connection takes place. And then it goes from there, right? That's not the end goal. That's just the start. And so what we're trying to do is really create that space for people to make that connection online, because yes, now 62% of people meet online. That number is only increasing.
Right.
So that's where we are going as a culture. And so we want to provide a space where you can have, where faith at the center, of Christ is really at the center of that relationship, and meet others that share that value, and have that be the starting point for you to make that connection, but then take that relationship offline. And so for us, it's not just about making the connections. There's also formational pieces and other things that we do that really help change that culture. Like they mentioned in the dating product, there's the storefront, that you have for yourself, and you have to put your best thing forward, and people come across your storefront and see, do they want to engage with that, yes or no, and all these different things. But the few differentiating things that we've built into SacredSpark to make it really intentional is obviously these audio and video features that we've built in, where it's not just a static photo and a simple bio, but also this matchmaker feature that's built into the app. And so we want to include the community, your friends and family, those that know you best, those that know the single's heart, to help them in that process of helping them find the other person. And so, because a lot of these singles, we know they're tired of dating apps. They don't want to be on dating apps. They just want to get the whole dating phase over and start, their relationship and their life with their someone. You know what I mean? That's, where we want to go in this intentional dating culture that we're trying to, facilitate and help make happen. But with this matchmaker feature, we enable those even to sign up. You can assign your matchmaker and then just sit back and have the matchmakers do the work for you, your friends or family, again, those that know you best, and those that also aren't in the quote unquote, the hot seat, so to speak. They're maybe not experiencing that same pressure that you are as a single, but they can help you in that process, facilitate, make the introductions for you. So you just receive your curated handpicked matches by those people that love you best right into your account. And so, there's features like that we've built into the app to really try to do things differently and really focus on the whole person, their outer beauty, their inner beauty, and help hopefully have that come across.
And I think the last thing I'll say is that the beauty of every love story, the root of every love story is different. But whether you met online or in person, whatever, it doesn't change the value of the relationship that you have together. 10 years ago, people would be embarrassed to say, we met online. In this day and age, most of my cousins' weddings have been online, from meeting online. And I think that it doesn't change the value of your relationship, how, the two you come across each other, whether it's on SacredSpark or in the produce aisle. The story that you write together is a beautiful thing. The way God brings you together, he takes that and he forms a beautiful relationship from it. And that's why I think a love story that's started like ours or a love story that's started on a dating app are both so important and so beautiful.
It's such a great way and different way of doing things. I just love it. So well done, you guys. Well done.
Thank you.
This is not an
Thank
easy.
you.
It is just not an easy culture to be coming in and doing this. Nick, how does that land for you? Like,
Well, yeah. Based on the description here, everything that we've talked about so far about SacredSpark. Well, let's face it. Like,
Prove
this
me
is.
wrong.
Of course, it's
Yeah.
online connections for an in-person relationship. I think that's an awesome thing to say, an awesome thing to clarify. The goal is to get off the apps.
Yes.
The goal, this is the place. You've built this beautiful thing so that people can meet easily and in a way that's realistic. Because if you just say, I am, if you have the Nick mindset, if you will, of just like, I am exclusively going to meet somebody in person, that's not realistic today. So I love this. I love what you're doing. And I also, as a married person who's, of course, not dating except dating my wife, people come to me for advice. People ask, like, how do I meet somebody? How do I do this? And I now have another recommendation for them. I can now say, well, actually, I'm on SacredSpark as a matchmaker. I have this. I have the match. I'm participating in the matchmaker functionality, so I can get you connected with people. So it's just like a simplified way for me to do a bit of the vetting for people that I love and care about, and who I would think would be in a good relationship together.
Yeah.
So
I love that.
It's great.
And
It's
also,
great.
I will tell you, as I'm probably one of the most outgoing and kind of socially, like, people have social anxiety. I have the opposite of that. So I just have none. I live in LA. I've been to more than 1,000 events. Like, I've just been to so many, I've talked to so many people, men, women, all kinds of people. So I don't have social anxiety. But let me tell you, when you are a single girly, like in my single season, when I was single and I was like, I was going to events and I was like, okay, Lord, Lord, please put my husband at this event. It would be so lovely if I could meet him here. There's a different like energy. So even for somebody like me who I'm so open, I'll talk to, anybody, but it's a lot. I also feel like a lot of the good guys, and I know all the women will agree, the good guys are not approaching you in real life. They're just not. I'm a big believer in dropping the handkerchief. That's really the way that I think women, if they see a guy that they think is cute, you drop the handkerchief. It's like an inadvertent comment, whatever. All of that to say, you guys are doing the Lord's work. What would be? Oh, sorry, Nick.
Yeah,
yes,
just
Nick.
going off of
Yes.
what you were saying about how guys
Yes.
are not approaching women in real life.
Yes.
And listen, I think the two most common reasons for that. I think two very common reasons for why that is for young guys not approaching women is, well, one, the fear of rejection, like we talked about.
Yes.
It sucks. It's really tough to have somebody say no to you, to say no, you're not for me, you're not the person. It hurts a little bit, but listen, we got to have a little bit thick skin, we got to be persistent and just keep going. The Lord has a plan for you. Also, I think in today's culture, guys are like the good guys at least, are like hypersensitive to coming across as creepy. That's a very real thing, I think. And so I think, unfortunately, in today's culture, the guys who are good guys, who should are very kind and courteous and should approach women that they're interested in, I think they're a little bit like hesitant to, because they don't want to have get a bad reputation. You know what I mean? So I'm curious if we could talk about like dating app hygiene. And by that, I mean, like, how should guys and girls conduct themselves on dating apps? How should we present ourselves? What should we lead with? How should we like organize our profile? Like, curious if we could talk about that.
I mean, let's start like you think about like whatever, washing your hands before you go and do something. Well, I encourage anybody to use SacredSpark is pray before you open the app. And people are like, what? That's kind of weird. It's like, no. Like I said at the beginning of this episode, the Lord can use anything. And all it takes is one moment, right? Anytime someone meets their future spouse, it's like the wedding feast at Cana. You didn't know the person, and then you know that person. It was water, and then it was wine. Boom, just like that, right? Take a moment to recenter yourself, right? Just to say, what am I using this for? Why am I opening this app? What is this about? Rather than just treating it like you treat Instagram or Facebook if you're 65 years old or whatever it is, right? And whatever your intention, I have to remember what my intentions are in opening this app and compartmentalizing it in that way in my life. I'm not just here to play a game. I'm not just here to shop. I'm here to seek what God wants for me, right? So that's what I would say would be the first thing to do before SacredSpark. And then on SacredSpark, as I've been matchmaking for one of my friends, it's been such a sweet experience. The men that really stand out are the men who really thoughtfully put their profile together. For on SacredSpark specifically, right? There's all different kinds of dating apps. The audio and video intro. There are men who give the funniest audios, and not to overthink it, right? It's not like, oh, I got to think about this for like a week. There was one, he just said, my name is Tim, and these are all the nicknames that I've ever been called in my life. And it was hysterical. It was just so sweet, so personal. And I just laughed, and I sent a matchmaker because he was in the perfect age range for my friend. And then there's amazing videos where people are bringing people into their space or their craft. They're playing a song on their guitar or on their violin. And it's just a beautiful way for you to highlight who you are as a person. And so if we get deeper, as you said, into dating app hygiene, right? You really want to be slow and intentional. And there's a couple of features. We don't want to get too into the weeds of how SacredSpark works, but there's a couple of features that we have that really help you slow down. I'm not shopping for socks on Amazon, which I was doing for my son this morning, just like scroll. Okay, that doesn't look good. That doesn't look good. We need to slow down if I'm thinking about doing this intentionally and really see this person as the imago Dei, the image and likeness of God, rather than socks on Amazon, right?
Yeah.
Properly sending messages also. You really, as a man, we really want the men to reach out first. We totally believe, Ali, in that. Drop the handkerchief, right? The men, you drop the handkerchief by online, sending a like to a man that's like, hey, I'm interested, I'm dropping my handkerchief. And as a man, to look at her profile. what does she say? Like, I love Lord of the Rings. Then ask her a thoughtful question about why she loves Lord of the Rings or whatever.
That's
it
all
is.
you
Lord of
need.
the
If
Rings.
she loves Lord of the Rings, you should probably marry her.
Yeah,
frankly,
marriage,
like
immediate,
highly recommend.
immediate.
Yeah.
So to be thoughtful about your interactions in that way, I would say those are a couple of main points on the hygiene
Yeah.
to make it a good experience. We hope.
Yeah, exactly. And to build on that as well. So part of what we're doing also is obviously the whole intention of SacredSpark is bringing these singles together. But to change the dating culture, we need to put change the script, so to speak, like of what dating looks like, and give people like the real, like the art of dating, if you want to call it that, has been lost. We feel people don't know how to actually date anymore. People say, well, I've been dating for 5 years. I really still don't know
We've
what
never
I'm
talked
doing.
about marriage. Like, we talked about in the dating project.
Yeah,
we've been dating 5 years. We haven't talked about marriage.
Exactly.
Like, what?
And so one of the things we're doing as well is we're creating these formational resources that help the people on the platform. And the first one that we created is Dating 101. So that's also, you get on SacredSpark, you can go through this formational resource that goes through all these different topics, like how should I present myself? How should I communicate? How should I ask somebody out on a date? And these are the standards that we want to adhere and uphold on SacredSpark. And we want you to, go through this as well and play by quote unquote these rules, like how to see somebody as their whole person, how to, you're meeting alive, but these are all human beings, and how to treat them with dignity and respect, and so forth. So really to help change, the dating culture in terms of helping people, and this is a lot what Emily's ministry has been for all these years as well. Like, how should people actually date? How should they communicate? How should they, to start an actual relationship? How do you set boundaries in a relationship?
Oof.
All of these different things.
A lot of the women, the big issues that the women say is that I feel like I have a pen pal. I feel like all I do is I have like 5 different pen pals. These guys are not asking me out. Like, what is going on here? So for the women, we found a really great line that we can kind of give you guys listening. For a woman to get off the app, they say, hey, listen, I'm newer to the dating apps. Like, I'm new to this whole dating app thing. How long are we supposed to talk before we meet in person? So it's like giving the guy the go ahead that if you feel like, okay, it's been like 3 days and we've been back and forth, that's the 3 days in my opinion, that's a lot of time and energy to spend on somebody that there's no date set just yet. Ideally, the man would ask. Ideally, the man says something similar. For the men to have, in terms of dating app hygiene, it's having the self-discipline that like, okay, yeah, I'm busy, and yeah, setting up a date, it's it's a lot. Set up the date. The goal is, I think for anyone listening, if you were trying to date with intention, intentionally get off the dating app and get in person.
Yes.
And don't talk to like 17 people at once. Guys, what do you feel about that? How many people is too many people to be talking to on when you're using the dating app? You're fresh, you're going in. How many is too many? How many is too little? Is it just one at a time? What do you guys recommend? What do you see that works?
If you're listening out there, you need to watch The Dating Project. It is an amazing look at dating. And in that documentary, she's breaking it down by like these experiential levels.
Yeah.
And then in the one level, right, you're just getting to know each other. Then you could be doing that with multiple people. Could we throw out facts and figures? 5, 10. This is really, if we're looking at faith-based dating, this is up to your own discernment with the Lord to say, Lord, is like in wisdom, give me the wisdom to navigate this. Should I be talking to these 3 people in this very introductory way at the same time? I think it's more than fine to go on different dates with different people. Then she talks about level 2, right, in the dating project. How if you start kissing this person, you got to focus in. That's what she says. She said, you can't just be going around like kissing all these people, doing all these things. So the dating project really laid that out really beautifully. But I think, and Nick, I'd be interested to hear your opinion on this as someone who went to Franciscan, where, it's more of a high stakes thing. There's pressure. I know that was a while back for you. But you'll be talking to a couple of people very casually at the same time, right? And Ali, like you said, to get into that date, right? That's why our tagline for SacredSpark is start something good. We want the engine to get going. We want you to meet. We want you to go out to ice cream or whatever it is and get going. But a couple of people at the same time in the very beginning stages isn't a problem, but it's up to your own wisdom and discernment. And Nick, I'd be interested to hear what you think about that in terms of like casual dating versus the formality of it.
Yes. So in my experience and the experience of like those closest to me and all the really successful relationships that I've seen in my life from those around me, if you are going on multiple dates with one person, I think my advice would be, just based on experience, don't be dating anybody else. Don't really be talking to anyone else seriously. Now, I understand that maybe the world has changed a little bit. Maybe the online world is different. Maybe it's a little bit more, maybe it's less high stakes if you're having like 3 different conversations through the app prior to going on a date. But I think that if you've gone on a date with somebody and you want to go on another date with them to like, keep seeing what's here, I wouldn't recommend going out with another person at the same time. And I know you said like maybe you could go out with multiple people at a time. But yeah, if you're starting to really feel something for somebody and you're realizing you're compatible, you're starting to align, I feel like I want to be exclusive with this person, I wouldn't be talking to anybody else. I mean, it's not a guarantee that if you go on 4 dates and it goes well, but then by the 5th date, you're like, you know what? Actually, I don't really see a future for us. Yeah, go talk to the other people. But I wouldn't recommend like going on 3 dates with 3 different people at the same time. You know what I mean?
So it's really interesting because Alison Armstrong, I don't know if you guys know Alison Armstrong. She was on Lila Rose's podcast, so definitely you guys check that out. She does, it is incredible. And she talks about this idea of men are single focused and women are diffuse focused. And I think it's also really interesting and important for men that these are also differences between men and women.
Yes.
And it's okay to have differences between men and women, especially when we're dating. So whereas for a man, men get very confused. If there is more than one woman that they are dating, they like short circuit. They're like,
You're breaking down where I'm coming from.
Yeah,
100%.
100%. Whereas for women, and again, I'm generalizing, whatever, welcome to the world. But for women, a lot of women can hyper-focus if they are just dating one guy. And so women actually are more primed to say, okay, this was a lovely young man, and now I'm going to go on another date. Again, a level 1 date. We're not talking makeout sessions.
Not relationships.
We're not talking, these deep, intimate after, I think, date 2, date 3 is when you got to nip it in the bud of dating multiple people. Yeah. But I do think it is important because what we've seen happen is women then put all of their eggs in this one basket, and then the energy shifts, and the women become the pursuers, and the women become then they are hyper fixating. They're like, well, he's the guy. I love him. But the energy shift has to be, we have to acknowledge that men have to feel as though they're pursuing. And that I'm a big believer in the male being the masculine and being the pursuers and the ones that are planning and the ones that are leading and the ones that are kind of like what you did. You were saying, okay, I am interested in dating you and now here is what we're going to do. Whereas with the woman needs to men chase, women choose. And, a great book, Dr. Dawn Maesler, love her, love that book, fascinating about early stages of dating and psychology behind it. So I have found that it works best when not that women are, like I said, they're not sleeping around, they're not making out with a million guys, they're not going on a different date every week, but it is important for them to not put all of their eggs in one basket because then something weird happens when that happens. And the guys, for whatever reason, if they sense it, they're like, oh, she's way, like she's all in right now.
If it's too much too soon.
It's too,
sure.
And the guys need to feel like, oh, let me prove to her that I'm the one for her. Call it archaic, but we're,
Yeah, I guess that's kind of a traditional view to be like, give the guy the space to lead. Like, let him plan the first few dates, let him pay, like, let him feel like, I've got this. I did such a good job planning this. This date was awesome. And you know what I mean? Like give him the confidence to be like, this was a good first date. I could do it again. I could go on another date. And I think it will lead to more success in dating for both men and women. So definitely want to reinforce that.
I love it. Yeah. What do you guys think about that? I mean, are we Is this triggering? Are you guys like, yeah, this sounds about right? Is it?
I am a person who's very hard to trigger. I'm triggered by very few people.
It's a good quality. That's a good quality.
Very relaxed person. I think what you said, Nick, is so key. Giving men the space to lead. The idea of toxic masculinity, and this we could talk till Christmas about this, so we won't keep our listeners till then. All these things that have made men feel like, man, they have this desire to lead. They have this desire to step up, and in so many ways it's squashed or it's ignored. Giving men the space to lead, and you're like, how do I do that, right? As a person, that looks different for everybody. It looks different for every relationship, and I would just encourage people to pray about it, right? If you're starting on that first date and you're like, I want to give this man the space to lead, how do I do that, right? To breathe, to relax, to let the man step up. Giving a man a space to lead is a really beautiful way, right? Like I did with my husband here, to let him show you his masculinity, to let that complement your femininity, and to go from there.
Yeah.
May there be a revival and leadership among men in the dating world. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Yeah.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah.
Yes. So, Emily, Daniel, in our last few minutes here, I do want to ask I think a pretty big question and an important question. In today's world, in today's dating culture, it's very confusing. It's very tough. Things have changed over the last decade. Why should people get into relationships? Why should we try for a committed relationship, the goal being marriage? Why should we try and go for that? Why should we put in all the effort to do that?
I think we're all made for human connection, and nobody wants to waste other people's time, let alone their own time, right? And so in intentional dating, clarity, communication, but really seeing the person as an actual human being that you want to invest into, are just core components, I think, beneficial for anybody. I think with the hookup culture and everything that we see in our dating culture today, there's so much confusion, anxiety, just negativity around all of that, right? But how can we really focus on hope, and how can we make it really something that's fruitful and that's life-giving versus, life-sucking, basically, you know what I mean? And how can we really relate that hope, of the dating culture? And being intentional is, so beneficial in so many different ways. But I think it really comes down to seeing the other person, made in the image and likeness of God, breaking free of this cultural mold that has been formed around us, living in this age of no commitment, live in comfort. It's all about me, focusing the relationship on yourself. We all know, like, being in committed, being in a marriage, it's not about me, right? It's about my wife. It's about my family. It's all about giving and serving, and that's what you can start already as you're single and as you start dating, right? Because if you're dating with the mindset of me, and I want to get all the things on my list, and I want this person to fulfill me and all these different things, it's never going to work, right? That's how this hookup culture, that's how this culture of me is so successful, because people they're focused on themselves while they should be focusing on the other person. And so breaking that mold and really learning that now already, really focusing on that now. Like when I'm dating intentional for my own sake and for the other person's sake, and along the way develop myself as a single person, right? It's not that, this date didn't work out, I went on 3 dates, now I wasted all this time. If you're dating intentionally, those 3 dates only set you up to now say, hey, this was great, but this didn't work out. Now I know moving forward, these are the things, this aspect or whatever it might be. You're constantly working on yourself as a single person as well. And if you're not doing that intentionally, you're not working on yourself. And so really seeing this time of singleness, of singlehood, as this opportunity to keep working on yourself as you're dating, as you're putting yourself out there, and as you're trying to follow this path and this plan that the Lord has in all of our lives, and seeing where that goes. But the intentionality is really the key, to do that well. And then you really can't lose either, because then if it doesn't work out, you're still winning, so to speak. So, leave it.
Yeah, and I think dating that's for marriage and dating with intentionality is really what will lead you to peace. Is every relationship perfect? No. Do all relationships take hard work and really humility? Yes. But dating intentionally with a view toward marriage will lead you to less confusion and more peace. Here's the last thing I'll say. Everybody says, oh, dating is such a mess. It's so confusing. And I say, it doesn't have to be like that in your life. You can choose to be clear. You can choose to be intentional. You can choose not to allow yourself to be used. You set up the boundaries in your own life. You can say, yeah, it's all a mess, but it's not a mess in my life because I am making the changes and I'm making the choices to make sure that it isn't. The power is in your hands to make these choices in your life, and you get to choose whether or not you're going to do it.
Yeah. Wow.
Emily.
Yes.
Preach.
Yes, yep.
Yes, honey.
I love what you both are saying about the end goal being a fulfilling life. That's why we're dating, because we're trying to build something that is meaningful, finding your purpose. And of course, your spouse is a huge part of that. And so, oh my gosh, I feel like so many people just hop into relationships here and there because they're like, well, it's pretty boring to be alone, or it's uncomfortable. I don't like it, and so they just will be in these vague situationships and whatnot, not defining where they're at or where it's going, because they're like, well, it's better than being single, and that's the wrong mindset. Like you both are saying, your single life can be preparation for a successful married life. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
You guys, thank you so much for chatting with us and sharing your ministry, sharing your hearts, sharing your story. And you are doing the Lord's work. You truly are.
Yes.
And we are just so grateful. Thank you guys for being here.
Yes, this has been a blast. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
It's been a gift to be here, and thanks to all your listeners. And we just hope that this journey as you take through this podcast is one that really touches hearts and help people date with intention and with clarity and differently in the best way possible.
Amen. Yeah. Thank you guys.
Thank you,
Of
guys.
course. Thank you both so much.
Thank you.